Working overtime at night, my neighbor sent a message, politely reminding me to keep it down. I was stunned for a moment, packed up and went home. When I opened the door, my best friend was wearing my pajamas, holding my cat, and coming out of my bedroom with a provoking look. I slapped her hard, but my boyfriend Steven stopped me. He held my friend's waist, coldly reminding her, "Nancy, we broke up 3 days ago." Then, right in front of me, he kissed her. Working until 1 o'clock, my phone suddenly rang. My neighbor messaged me, "Can you please ask your boyfriend to keep it down? I have to go to work tomorrow morning." My heart was painfully struck, overwhelming pain flooded me, and the mist in front of my eyes almost made it difficult for me to type complete words. Steven, my boyfriend of 5 years, who I grew up with since childhood, broke up with me 3 days ago. That day, he came home drunk and the first thing he said was, "Nancy, let's break up." There was a dull and sinister light in his eyes. I didn't agree, thinking it must be because his mother had recently passed away and he was feeling sad, saying nonsense while drunk. Steven and I grew up together, went to the same high school, and attended the same college. During our sophomore year, after I finished a dance performance on stage, a younger student came up with flowers to confess to me, and that's when Steven appeared. He put his arm around me, with a direct and intense gaze, apologizing as he said, "Sorry, she has a boyfriend." I turned my head in surprise to look at him, and he seemed a bit awkward, calling himself a fool. Our eyes locked, his gaze burning with a warmth that seemed tangible. He kissed the corner of my lips, his voice husky, "Nancy, I'm better than him. Will you give me a chance?" We got together, ending my 6 years of secret admiration. Steven was good to me. So when he suggested breaking up, I didn't agree. These 3 days, I haven't contacted him, wanting him to calm down with these thoughts. My heart felt sour, and I hurried back. Without knocking, I entered using the password. Just as I stepped in, I bumped into a woman who had just come out of the bedroom. It was the same woman I had told 3 days ago about Steven wanting to break up with me. She cursed at me the most, telling me I deserved better and urged me to drink and drown my sorrows with our mutual friend Shirley. Now, dressed in our couple pajamas, holding the cat we raised together, she looked at me provocatively. "Sorry, I didn't bring clothes. Can I borrow yours? Just a pajama, you won't mind, right?" My mind raced through many scenarios, but I never imagined this one. My best friend, with my beloved boyfriend, part of a crazy situation. I rushed at her like a mad person, and we ended up grappling, only to be pulled apart by Steven coming out of the bedroom. He pushed me away rudely, gently holding my friend's waist, coldly reminding me, "Nancy, we broke up 3 days ago." I didn't agree. He really wanted to break up with me and he brought someone back so openly. I didn't even understand why he insisted on breaking up. Why? Holding back the tumult of emotions in my heart, I rushed into our bedroom. My face mask had been opened and used, left on the bedside table. The deer headband I wore when washing my face was thrown on the ground, one of the antlers broken and crooked. I tore apart the bed like a maniac, pulling out the mattress. Steven had back problems, so I specially bought him a new mattress, costing me 3 months' salary. Yet he let another woman sleep on it. My vision blurred as tears welled up. I wiped them away while gathering my things. Shirley must have come in at some point and handed me a tissue kindly. "Nancy, it was fun while it lasted. You can keep the mattress, it's not easy to buy one this late." I flung my clothes at her face, asking if they wanted me to pay their electricity bill too. The buttons on my clothes left a red mark on her fair face, just as Steven walked in and Shirley lunged into his arms. "Nancy, you dared to hit my girlfriend in my house? Who gave you the courage?" Just like back then, his protectiveness was like a challenge to me. He was always like this, forcefully protecting me, scornfully saying to the girl, "Bullying my girlfriend in my territory? Do you think I'm a pushover?" I gathered scattered things into a heap. When I tried to put the cat in the carrier, Shirley playfully nudged Steven's arm, saying, "Steven, I love milk tea. I can't bear to part with it." Our eyes met in the air. He stayed silent for a moment and said coldly, "Leave the cat, Shirley likes it." My heart ached terribly, as if a heavy stone was tied to me, causing unbearable pain. The cat was a birthday gift from Steven to me. We walked out of the restaurant after finishing our meal. I ate a bit too much, so we strolled around the neighborhood for 3 laps before I said I couldn't walk anymore and wanted to go back home. He asked me to close my eyes, then like magic, he pulled out a cat. Steven stood under the streetlight, with a halo of light giving him a filtered glow, looking remarkably charming. But now, he wants to erase everything between us, not even willing to mention my name. How did we end up like this? I won't cry. Just end up being treated as a joke. The pain and hatred intertwining in my chest are about to suffocate me. I must take Coco with me. Not only because it means a lot to me, but also because it carries my blood, sweat, and tears, like my own child. My best friend glanced at Steven and said, "Nancy, you both are no longer together. You insist on taking the cat. Are you still not over Steven?" Impossible. Steven suddenly spoke, staring at me with eyes as black as ink. "Nancy, I don't love you anymore," he said suddenly, as if eager to prove something. He grabbed my best friend's chin and kissed her. After packing up, I dragged things downstairs at night. The car I called for didn't arrive, so I held Coco and looked blankly at the street. The owner of the grocery store kept giving me sidelong glances, and finally sighed, handed me a cigarette. "Tomorrow the sun will still rise, nothing to fret about." I thanked him, asked for a pair of scissors, and dismantled the mattress. The mattress was still new. What a waste. "It's dirty." I struggled to dismantle the mattress, my hands getting cut, drops of blood falling, but I didn't stop, almost like self-harm, venting my emotions, letting tears stream down my face. Enough. Steven showed up out of nowhere, gripping my wrist tightly, furious. "Nancy, who are you trying to impress with this self-destructive behavior?" he said, wiping the bloodstains from my hands. I pushed him away, threw the dismantled mattress in the trash can, coldly saying, "For you? Impress who? You're mistaken." He looked at me for a long time with a cold smile. "In that case, don't show up in front of me again." He walked away, but a few minutes later, he drove out of the parking lot, and Shirley leaned out halfway from the passenger seat window. "Nancy, it's late, you can't find a cab, come in, I and Steven will take you home." The light from the street lamps was dim, but I could still see that ambiguous look on Steven's face. "All right," I smirked, picked up a wooden stick from the roadside, and smashed Steven's car window like a madwoman. Shirley screamed in terror, revealing her true colors. "Nancy, have you gone mad? Do you know how much this car costs?" "Yes, I know," I replied. "I even chose the color myself. And the person in the driver's seat once said that his passenger seat would always be for me only." Steven glanced at me, calm in his eyes. "You smash my car, and I'll return the favor with a clean break." "Nancy, we're done with those words." He drove away. A few broken windows acted as the end of a 6-year secret love and a 3-year relationship. Is his love worth so little, or am I just not worth loving? On the night I moved back home, Shirley sent me a video. In a dimly lit bar, Steven sat in a booth, holding a glass of alcohol. He said, "Truth or dare?" His companion asked, "What's the most regrettable thing you've done?" Steven fell silent for a moment before replying, "Paying Nancy's tuition." It felt like hands squeezing my heart viciously. I remember it was the beginning of my senior year. My grandma fell ill, and after getting discharged from the hospital, the remaining savings in my bank account were nowhere near enough to cover my tuition fees. I borrowed money for a long time but couldn't secure any. One afternoon, coming out of the counselor's office, I saw Steven leaning against the wall smoking. His expression was cold as he said, "Can't swallow your pride, Nancy?" Ego got the better of me, and I didn't tell him I was broke, staying tight-lipped. His face darkened instantly. He dragged me to the playground, pressed me against the wall, and furiously asked, "I'm your boyfriend, you'd rather seek help from someone else than ask me?" He sighed, and his expression softened, showing a profound heartache in his eyes. "Baby, can I lend you the money?" He paid my tuition fees, and I returned the money to him as soon as I received my scholarship. Since then, he treated me even better, and he's always been smart, knowing how to protect my fragile ego. I called her directly on a voice call, and she answered without delay. Shirley, where did I go wrong with you? I met Shirley in our sophomore year and once saw her dad hitting her, pulling her hair and hitting her head against the wall, locking her out without food. I took her home. Grandma made us a lot of delicious meals, she even celebrated her birthday at my place, and when she got sick and was hospitalized, I stayed by her side. I always thought that we were like sisters, just missing the same last name. Grandma also said that there will always be a bed for her in our home. Shirley laughed and said, I like Steven, is that reason enough? He never told you, did he? After you started dating him in your second year, I confessed to him too, and he said, friendship lasts longer. It started that early. I recalled the day when Steven proposed to me. We were supposed to go watch a movie, but midway through, Shirley called me. She said that the guy she had a crush on had proposed to someone else, and she was feeling upset and wanted me to be there for her. So, a movie for two became a movie for three. After the movie ended, we drank at a barbecue stall. Shirley got drunk and mistook Steven for someone she liked. Thinking back, how could you mistake someone you really like? Nancy, I liked Steven not much later than you. You and him broke up before I got together with him, so I've been considerate. You have no right to accuse me. But you're my best friend. You know all about my secret crush, my joys, and sorrows. But you backstabbed me at my lowest moment. What am I accusing you of? I chuckled, accusing you of picking up trash. After picking it up, you flaunt it in front of me? Shirley, you lack love, and he lacks morals. You two are really a match. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I was so foolish. Those meals in the past were not even worth feeding to a dog. Soon, I wouldn't have time to hate Steven and Shirley anymore. Work was hectic. Lots of overtime. I was so tired that I almost lost all emotions. I just wanted to sleep when I got home. I slept until noon on the weekend, only to be awakened by a message on my phone. I rubbed my eyes, unlocked my phone. Congratulations on ending a 5-year courtship and tying the knot with Steven. Congrats, when is the wedding day set? I want to be your bridesmaid. I scrolled through Twitter. An hour ago, Steven posted a picture. In the picture, he was holding hands with a girl, and they both had on engagement rings. Like a thorn, it pierced my heart accurately. Initially, Steven and I were supposed to get married, but his mom had an accident. Everything was put on hold. He said he didn't plan to get married temporarily. I told him it was okay. I understood. Steven's mom never really liked me, she might have even hated me. When I first visited his home in college, Steven's mom was very cold towards me. It wasn't until later, after we graduated and had plans to marry, that she softened a bit. She clearly told me she wouldn't accept me. I don't know what Steven told her, but after that incident, her attitude towards me improved a bit. I felt that, from the heart to the heart, even though my family background couldn't compare, I was not lacking in other aspects. I was good enough for Steven, I could win over his mom. Until the day before his mom's accident, I found out that some things don't go as planned no matter how hard you try. My conversation with Steven's mom didn't go well. She explicitly said that if I dared to marry Steven, she would sever ties with him. With such heavy-hearted love, without the blessing of the elders, could we still be happy in the long run? I didn't dare to bet, I was scared. I chickened out, but I hadn't figured out how to tell Steven. That day I felt terrible, so I turned off my phone and went out to drown my sorrows alone. It was that night that Steven's mom committed suicide in the bathtub at home. That night, Steven, oblivious, was searching all over the city, while I was also clueless, missed the last meeting with his mom. Later, I learned that Steven's mom had severe depression. I felt extremely guilty. What if I had been more alert? Noticed that something was wrong with his mom. If I didn't run out alone that night in a fit of upset, left my phone on, Steven wouldn't have missed seeing his mom for the last time. During that period, I felt lost and uneasy. What made it harder for me to get over was the things Steven's mom said. I didn't hide it, I told Steven. I really didn't know what to do. He said, silly, it has nothing to do with you. After you left, My dad brought a woman home and was caught by my mom, leading to what happened next. Maybe I was too emotional. He pinched my cheeks and pretended to be stern. Nancy, how could you entertain the thought of breaking up with me? Do you have any conscience? I naively thought everything was over. Until he went to see his mom without me. It's okay, his mom didn't like me. It wouldn't have been good if I went, but later, he became more and more distant, avoided coming home, we argued more, and then I realized there was a gap between us. I've known Steven since elementary school. My parents passed away early. I lived with my grandmother, got bullied and didn't dare fight back or talk back. I was timid and introverted. It was Steven who stood up for me and scared off those bullies. He planted a sunflower, and when it bloomed, he told me, Nancy, you should be like a sunflower, always following the light. So, when he gave me a sunflower, I didn't tell him that I actually didn't like sunflowers, I liked roses. What did the flower matter? As long as it was from him, it was good. In middle school, he always took a long detour to wait for me outside my alley, with a bottle of warm milk in his hands. He accompanied me throughout my childhood, through my entire youth. But he still didn't want me. He initiated the breakup. At the time, I still didn't realize that his mom's situation was the main reason for our split. Looking back now, it all makes sense. Even though I was aggrieved, what could I do? How could I argue with a dead person? How could I possibly compete with a dead person? Break up, fine, but at least give a reason. But he didn't even give me a reason, unilaterally broke up, and brought another woman home. I looked at the well wishes from friends, deleted Steven's contact information, and posted a tweet. Mutual breakup, thank you all for your concern. I was so restless, and subconsciously wanted to smoke. That's when Coco jumped into my arms, nudging me with its head. It dawned on me that I hadn't fed it dinner yet. I found the cat food, and in my mind, I couldn't help but recall the scene of me and Steven feeding the cat together. I rubbed my eyes, murmured to myself, Coco, I want to start a new life. I can't take care of you properly. I'll find you a good home, send you off. Will you blame me? Coco looked at me, meowing. I found a good home for it soon. It was a young couple who had just graduated. I took Coco to the agreed-upon location. The couple looked young and full of life. When I was about to hand over the cat, the girl's eyes were lit up with surprise, and the boy's eyes were filled with adoration for the girl. I too was once this happy. Just send me a few pictures occasionally. Just as they were about to speak, a pair of hands with prominent knuckles took the cat carrier. Steven, clad in a high-end suit, with indifference in his eyes, said, Sorry, the cat isn't leaving. The couple walked away with unhappy expressions. I frowned. Steven, this is my cat, you have no right to interfere. Is that so? He countered, but don't forget, I was the one who gave you this cat. If I say no, then you have no right to give it away. It took me a while to clearly see the resentment hidden beneath Steven's dark eyes. Steven, do you hate me? His eyes changed. Because of me, you didn't get to see your mother one last time. I'm sorry. He betrayed me. I hated him for that, but I did feel guilty about his mother. Sorry? He sneered, and for the first time, his once cold eyes showed hatred and resentment towards me. Can you tell me what you and my mom talked about that night? You said she was domineering and didn't care about others' feelings. That's why she couldn't keep my dad, and she couldn't keep me either. You also said that I love you to the core, even if she dies. My heart will not waver in marrying you, right? When Steven threw the will at me, I finally understood. His mother really did have such great malice towards me. What did I do exactly to make her hate me so much? To the point of leaving fabricated content in the will for Steven. Are you going to defend yourself? He taunted. I never said those things. Steven smirked. Well, of course you won't admit it. After all, you were a liar from the moment I met you. Tears welled up in my eyes. I slapped him hard, and before I could hit him again, he grabbed my wrist. Was I wrong? His cruel smile revealed, Nancy, you're such a jinx. Your parents are gone, even your grandmother is gone. When I woke up later, I was in the hospital. My college roommate, Melody, was by my side. You're awake, how are you feeling? Any discomfort? I shook my head, much better. Shirley, that bitch, I told you she's up to no good. Is she a professional junk collector? Melody cursed under her breath. After being discharged, I took 2 days off and Melody stayed with me at home. After dinner, she said she needed to go downstairs to buy something and left for an hour. I called her but she didn't answer for a long time. Instead, I received a call from the police station, asking me to come over. Melody was at the police station, and with her was Shirley. Both of them looked terrible, clothes disheveled, hair a mess, bruises on their faces, but Shirley seemed to be more severely injured. Shirley cried, claiming that I invaded her home, vandalized my house, and even hit her. You bitch, wherever you go, trouble follows. You. Shirley choked, turned and looked at me with a smile. Nancy, did you drug Melody? Why is she protecting you like a dog? So I got into a fight with Shirley. Melody blindly stood by my side. The 2-person fight turned into a 3-person scuffle. All 3 of us were detained, and the police asked us to call someone to pick us up. Shirley called someone, triumphantly saying, Steven. I restrained Melody, hold on. If we keep fighting, we might end up getting arrested for real. Let's figure out a way to get someone to come pick us up first. Melody had no family here, and neither did I. I just didn't expect Steven to arrive so quickly. He should have come directly from the office. He hadn't even changed his clothes. He glanced at me, furrowed his brows, about to say something when Shirley jumped into his arms. It's okay. Steven really cared about her. He went through the process and took Shirley away. However, he soon turned back, his tall figure standing in front of me, his eyes unreadable. Nancy, are you asking for my help? Melody, did you hear the dogs barking? You will need my help. Melody and I returned home at 10 o'clock. We were supposed to stay overnight, but the police must have thought we looked too disheveled and let us go after each of us wrote a self-criticism report. It was that night that I received a message from my boss. I was fired. When I called, my boss hesitated for a long time. Think about who you offended recently. Who else could I have offended? Who else could make my boss fire me? Only Steven. The company I worked for had a collaboration with Steven's family company. All the projects I had worked on, all those sleepless nights, had gone to waste. I smoked on the balcony, cigarette after cigarette. It was hard to smoke, tears streaming down. I dialed that long familiar number, only to be hung up on. I dialed again, and was hung up on once more. The third one, he finally picked up. In the silent night, his voice was as cold as winter snow. Nancy. My hands were shaking badly, my voice choked up, and I yelled in despair. I didn't say those things to your mom. It wasn't me. Why don't you believe me? He listened quietly. Evidence. I didn't have any evidence. I couldn't produce it. Nancy. His voice came through, distant and unfamiliar. I used to want to marry you so much. I didn't tell Melody about the job. Her visit was enough to worry about. After seeing her off, I started looking for a job, but it wasn't going smoothly. Steven studied finance. He went to work at his family's company right after college. I studied the same thing as him. It can be said that all the famous finance companies in the city have business dealings with his family's company. After being turned down for the 10th time, I went to Steven's company. The receptionist recognized me at a glance. The boss is upstairs, just go up directly. Hasn't Steven told the company about our breakup? I rode the elevator all the way up to the top floor. I entered Steven's office. He was looking at documents with his head down. He had a slight nearsightedness, only wearing glasses for tasks that required intensity, austerely attractive. You're here? Steven looked up at me for a moment. Although it was a question, his tone was affirmative. He knew I was coming. I couldn't be as composed as he was. I threw my bag at his face. He turned his head. A piece of his eye corner was cut and oozing blood. Someone heard the noise and came in. Boss. Get out. The door was shut. Steven took off his glasses, looking at me indifferently. Is that all you've got? What do you want after all? Can't you understand human language, or is your brain malfunctioning? I didn't say those things to your mom. doesn't your house have surveillance? Go check it out. Work as my assistant Shirley and I broke up. Steven said, you can also move back in, didn't I say I didn't say it? Come back and prove it to me. I grabbed the water on the table and splashed it on his face. Go to the hospital if you're sick. I just didn't expect that Steven and Shirley really broke up. I didn't care about their affairs. A friend introduced me to a job as a real estate agent. I thought it would be a temporary transition for me. My state was too bad. When I had nothing to do, my mind wandered, so I went. After signing a contract with a client and getting off work that day, it was already 11 o'clock, a strange call came to my phone. Nancy, Steven is drunk, he's been calling your name, can you come pick him up? Is he very drunk? I asked. Not too bad. I replied, then let him drink more, preferably to death. I will definitely attend his funeral then. After saying that, I hung up and blocked the number. Passing by a street food stall, the fragrance hit me. These days, I gradually got back on track, my whole person had regained focus. I sniffed, boss, I want this. Suddenly, my elbow was bumped, my phone fell to the ground and the screen cracked. Sorry. I turned my head and saw a group of male college students. On such a cold day, I wished I had a coat, yet they were wearing jerseys and shorts. They must be freezing. The one who bumped into my phone stood out the most, tall and thin. Very thin, but in a healthy way, with tousled bangs, and a pair of eyes as clear as a spring, full of youthful vitality. What's the matter, Jackson? Why are you squeezing into people's space? That's right, sister, don't let him off, make him pay. His companions heckled, and the guy who bumped into my phone kicked them, telling them to shut up. Do you still want to eat or not? The guy had picked up my phone, examined it, and said in a clear voice, it's not usable, the phone shop is closed now, take mine for the time being, I'll contact you tomorrow. After saying that, he handed me his phone. Jackson. Nancy. Out of politeness, I introduced myself, but it was probably not appropriate. There's nothing private in my phone, the password is 0823, feel free to use it. Is that what I mean? Nancy, come eat with us. Jackson. Since he broke your phone, make him treat you to a meal. The male college students were really hospitable. I had a barbecue with them and even had a bit of alcohol. But I never expected Jackson to get drunk. One by one, his classmates left him and ran off, leaving him behind. I looked at Jackson, who seemed dazed, held out 2 fingers in front of him and asked, how many is this? Jackson looked at me with red eyes, his Adam's apple rolled, he grabbed my hand, swayed, and fell on top of me. It took a lot of effort to carry him back to the old and shabby rental house I lived in. As we arrived downstairs in the community, I supported him and rummaged for keys in my bag. There were too many things in my bag and it was messy, so I couldn't find them for a while. It was at this moment that I felt a light tug, and Jackson was dragged away. I heard a familiar and angry voice in my ear, Nancy, are you so desperate for company? Steven, who shouldn't have been there, stared at me fixedly. There are a lot of cigarette butts on the ground. He looks at me as if I betrayed him, like catching him cheating. I suddenly feel like laughing. What's it to you? And do you really think someone like me would be so desperate? As I finished, my forehead throbbed fiercely. Nancy Jackson's voice was low and lazy, his arms tightly wrapped around my waist. I felt a heat from him, resisting the urge to push his hands away. What's wrong? It's so noisy. Nancy, Steven, we broke up. Jackson suddenly raised his head and stared at Steven, looking quite imposing. Open the door, get inside. I helped Jackson to the small sofa. Do you want some water? He nodded. I poured a glass of warm water for him, which he took and drank. I went inside to grab a blanket for him, feeling more awake now. Ex-boyfriend? I murmured, handing back his phone. Should I call a cab for you, so you can make it back to school in time? Jackson remained silent. After a while, he asked me, aren't you worried that I might run away and not return your phone? Your school name is on your jersey. If you really did run away, I'd come to your school with a loudspeaker to catch you. He suddenly laughed lazily, leaning back on the sofa. Forget it, too hasty. Too hasty about what? Jackson didn't answer me, closing his eyes and pretending to sleep. I was also exhausted. With a stranger in the house, I quickly freshened up and went back to my own room, making sure to lock the bedroom door before going to bed. The next day, Jackson was gone. I stood still for 3 seconds. Could I have been scammed? Just then, I saw the unopened new phone on the table, the latest model, with a note beside it. A string of phone numbers. I quickly switched phones and called Jackson. It rang for several seconds before someone answered. Speak. Jackson, where did you get the phone early this morning? The phone store wouldn't have been open, and the phone you bought is too expensive. My phone doesn't cost half as much, it's old and practically worthless. I can transfer you the money. This one's mine, someone delivered it to me. The phone store wasn't open. You can add me on other contacts, no need to transfer the money. Are you sure? I tried to persuade him. How about helping me with my homework? You can use the extra money to offset it. He didn't listen to me at all. Then how about tutoring me? I saw the books in your living room, and we're both studying finance. I hung up. Later, Jackson sent me his class schedule. What time do you get off work? I'll come pick you up. Can't say for sure, it depends on whether we have clients. Jackson and I chatted vaguely. Suddenly, a shadow fell in front of me. I thought it was a colleague, but when I looked up, it was Steven. Let's talk. I apologized, I'm at work. Fine. Steven pushed up his glasses. I'm buying a house. It was clearly intentional. If I didn't entertain him, he would specifically ask my supervisor for me to entertain him. I showed him around, and he randomly pointed to the largest apartment. Do you like it? I'll buy it and give it to you. I like it. The woody fragrance lingered around me. Jackson, who should have been in class, suddenly appeared beside me, sitting in a chair next to me, carefully looking at the floor plan. Nancy, I don't mind living in the house your ex-boyfriend bought you. I chuckled, wanting to send Steven away, so I asked him, do you want it? Yes, let's sign the contract, and I'll look into the interior design. He actually seemed serious, focusing on his phone. Steven's face turned sour as he looked at me through his glasses. Legally an adult now? We confirmed that last night. I'm an adult. Steven put down his cup heavily and left. Thanks, I said to Jackson. But didn't you have class this morning? Skipped. Jackson looked up at me. Didn't you check my schedule? I didn't notice it. After I finished work in the afternoon, Jackson had already returned to school, without mentioning making up for the missed class, so I just went home. As I arrived at the gate of the community, I saw Steven's conspicuous car parked there. I made a turn and texted Jackson, have you eaten? How about calling your friends from last time? I'll treat you all to dinner. When I got out of the car, I saw only Jackson standing lazily at the door. Where are they? I asked. At this time, they're all out on dates. It's impossible to meet up at the last minute. Melody messaged me at just the right time, and I replied to her casually. Jackson frowned. You're not just skipping out on treating me because I'm alone, are you? No, I was just thinking you're not the only single one, are you? Jackson put his hands in his pockets and walked ahead, and I followed closely behind. Winter hot pot is really comforting, and I was already hungry again, piling plate after plate of meat into the pot, but Jackson barely touched his chopsticks. Don't you like spicy food? I asked. No. I probed. Are these not the dishes you like? Jackson, weren't you out for dinner with your dorm mates an hour ago? You've had 2 meals today. Who's this pretty lady? Jackson sent the person away. I poured him some water. Have you really eaten? He nodded. He seemed a bit unnatural, picking up the spoon to fish for more meat. Not hungry. Then eat more. Jackson didn't eat much, making me realize he wasn't uninterested in eating. He was truly full. If you're full, why agree to come out with me? College guys can't be that idle, can they? Did you specifically come to accompany me? Thinking about all sorts of things, I didn't have much appetite. Figuring Steven had probably left, I suggested, should we go? Jackson looked at me, his light-colored eyes glowing under the lights. My roommate was singing, want to go together? I declined. Jackson and I walked over. It was lively. Steven and I had a good time after the fight. I was happier than I had been in a long time. Even when I fainted and ended up in the hospital last time, the doctor warned me that if I continued like this, I might actually get sick. So, feeling dizzy, I waved my hand nonchalantly and said, let's eat and have fun. My treat eyes sat in a corner, and after a while, Jackson came over. Why not join them for singing? I asked. Jackson frowned and said he hadn't heard. I leaned in closer, not knowing who pushed Jackson, my lips accidentally touching his cheek. It was like an electric shock, and I immediately pulled away, stiffening. Quickly regaining my composure, as if nothing had happened, I pointed to the group of people having fun and asked, why not sing with them? Tired? He finished his drink in one gulp, tilting his head back, revealing his prominent Adam's apple. Melody once said something out of the blue to me, a man's Adam's apple is quite intriguing. Am I really lacking a man? He's just a kid after all. I choked on my drink, and Jackson handed me a tissue to wipe my mouth and patted my back while saying, no one is competing with you. He seemed unperturbed by the ambiguous glances his roommate had been throwing at us. I understood his intentions, and I chuckled inappropriately. Do you like me? I teased. Jackson's movements abruptly stopped. I lightly patted the back of his head and said, I like you too. When I was little, I always wished my mom would give birth to a little brother for me. Who's your little brother? Jackson swatted my hand away, his face darkening. He should have understood what I meant. I grabbed my bag and stood up as the singing in the private room came to a halt. I have work tomorrow morning. You all have fun. I'll foot the bill, we can catch up another time. As I walked out the door, a gust of wind dispersed some of the alcohol fumes. Maybe it's best not to see Jackson again next time. As I called for a cab on my phone, someone suddenly grabbed my arm, nearly causing me to drop my phone. The person's face was determined as he pulled me to a secluded corner. In the darkness, his extremely light eyes were tinged with annoyance, the edges of his eyes red. Nancy. My gut told me the young man was a bit impulsive. I hesitated as he seemed inclined to help with my homework, but then I thought that there were plenty of bright girls at his school who could help him. He kissed me without warning. When I pushed him away, he stared back at me bluntly and said, yes. Realizing his response was to my question from the private room, I played dumb. Are you drunk? He gazed at me intently for a moment, then leaned into me, complaining of a headache. I laughed. Shall I walk you home? He asked pitifully, Nancy, won't you take me home like a good little dog? No, I replied. He pretended to be dead silent, making me push him away, but he kept coming back, repeatedly calling my name. This was no innocent college student, he was clearly a little devil. They say the best way to forget one relationship is to start a new one. I used to think it was nonsense, but now that I've met Jackson, it actually doesn't seem so bad. Think it over, I won't take responsibility. I said as I sent him home. On the way back, he stopped outside a pharmacy and stubbornly refused to let me accompany him inside to buy hangover medicine. But the subsequent events took an unexpected turn. He threw a small square box from his pocket onto my floral quilt. Don't waste it, he said with a husky voice that didn't seem like him at all. The next day, waking up to see Jackson sleeping next to me, I gave myself a slap on the head. I found my clothes and headed to the bathroom to text Melody. Slept with a college boy, hope I won't get arrested. The phone rang immediately. College boy? How old? I must have lost my mind. I quickly changed, sneaked out, and when I opened the door, a tall figure came into view. Coco? Steven was holding a cat bag and fell silent when he saw me. He stared at my neck, his deep, dark eyes seeming bottomless. You brought a man home for the night? Hastily correcting him, I said, we broke up long ago, move aside. Steven remained silent for a few moments. I exploded, what's wrong with you? Who I'm with, What I do, what does it have to do with you as my ex? A college boy, can he afford you? He retorted. No, wait, do you have enough money to spend on him? It's his skill. He slapped him, finding it beneath me to dirty my hand by slapping him across the face. I picked up the bag and hit him with it. He's young, strong, handsome, and skilled, 1,000 times better than you. Even if it means bankrupting myself, I'm willing to spend money on him. Can you control that? Steven stared at me, speechless. Nancy. Jackson's voice came from behind. He was standing there in just his underwear. His presence was too much for me to handle, so I rushed inside, grabbed a blanket from the sofa to cover him and asked, awake? Why didn't you call me when you woke up? Worried you'd be tired, I explained. Not tired. Nancy. Steven chimed in, Coco, do you want it back? He took Coco when I fainted last time and never returned him. I glanced at Coco in the bag, looking at me with hopeful eyes. I was reluctant to part with Coco, but if I took him back, Steven would surely pester me constantly. Just as I was unsure of what to do, Jackson walked over, took the bag, and said, Sister, let's change Coco's name to Lumbo. Steven sneered, Jackson, can you afford to buy her a diamond ring? Both of them refused to let go, staring at each other. Jackson smirked, I can't afford it, but Nancy is willing to buy it for me. Hasn't she bought anything for you before? She even said, college guys have good stamina. I took the cat bag from their hands, closed the door, all in one go. I looked out through the peephole. They didn't leave. Looks like I need to move out. Turning around, I faced the man and the cat. So ugly. Jackson said. Coco arrogantly turned her butt towards him. Jackson's face darkened as he turned the cat around and said sternly, Lumbo, repeat it in your heart 3 times if you don't remember, no fish treats for you. Coco just walked away. I chuckled, why are you competing with a cat? Then why are you competing with me? Can't I even change a name? Fine, change whatever you want, as long as you can make it adapt to the new name. After making sure the person outside had left, I grabbed my bag and left for work. Before leaving, I called out to him, Jackson. He looked up at me, his eyes as clear as water. Suddenly, my mood improved. I was late. I quickly put down my bag, rushed into the sales office lobby, and was pulled over by my colleague. Look at that couple. The man has a family business, his daughter is in high school, and today he brought his mistress to buy a house. I looked over, a man in his 40s, accompanied by a woman around my age. When she turned around, I was a bit stunned. Shirley. She saw me too, her expression stiffened for a moment, but in the next moment, she linked her arms with the man and walked straight to me, saying, Honey, let her introduce us, okay? You introduce. Shirley was really trying to push my buttons. She didn't listen when I introduced her, kept interrupting, and after a lot of back and forth, she finally said, Honey, how about the biggest unit? Weren't you saying you didn't want it just now? It was obvious that I wasn't the only one annoyed by her. The middle-aged man slammed the glass on the table. If you want this unit, just say so. And stop wasting my time. Shirley, you've been wasting my time for so long. If you want it, then get it. If you don't, then leave. The situation changed so suddenly, Shirley's face turned pale instantly. She asked me, we need to pay a deposit first, right? Because it's a full payment for the house, the process is shorter, but it will still take until 3 o'clock to finish everything. As I organized the documents, Shirley came over to chat with me. I heard you're renting a small house too. Did Steven not give you any settlement money after you broke up? He even bought me an apartment. I suggest you get insurance. What do you mean? I laughed, thank you for choosing me. With this deal, I can get an extra 2 percentage points, pushing my performance over the top and earning a bonus. I can make at least $60,000 this month conservatively. Shirley huffed and puffed as she walked away. Days flew by, Steven didn't come to bother me, and I enjoyed some peaceful days. I had found a new house recently and was getting ready to move. I snapped a photo of the roses on my balcony and posted, moving this weekend, a fresh start. My phone rang. Nancy said, "I heard you're moving, we have nothing to do this weekend, so we'll all come and help you." After singing together last time, we exchanged contact information one by one and then were pulled into a group chat. Jackson's roommates were all very enthusiastic. "Ivy already hired a moving company, thank you." Why hire a moving company when your money could be better spent inviting us for hot pot? We didn't get to eat it last time. So, it's settled then, Saturday morning at 9. After moving to the new house and enjoying hot pot, everyone clamored to go karaoke. Nancy, are you going? No, I'm going home to sleep. Jackson, are you going? No, I'm not going. Let's go back to the school together. I'm not going back to school. Jackson stared at me. Where are you going then? Can I go with you? I'm going to see my girlfriend and sleep, are you coming? Jackson followed, looking at me with intense eyes. Nancy. What's wrong? After a moment of silence, he averted his gaze and said, Nothing, I'm going back to school. With that, he turned and left without looking back. For several days in a row, Jackson didn't contact me, let alone come to see me. I was also planning to quit recently. I intended to visit Melody for a short trip on that day. After finishing work, preparing to pack up and leave, a middle-aged woman who looked very well maintained arrived at the sales office, saying she had an appointment with me to see a house. I handed off my potential clients to a colleague and didn't make any appointments, but she insisted, so I showed her around. Turns out, she wasn't interested in the house at all and asked me a lot of personal questions. In the end, she seemed uncomfortable and left with an excuse. A colleague joked, "Is she here to find a girlfriend for her son?" I didn't pay much attention. Later, as I was watching TV, people in a group chat kept messaging me. It was some photos. Jackson and a girl's silhouette. Nancy, you better come quick, someone's trying to steal Jackson away. I left the group chat and continued watching TV. By the end of the show, I couldn't remember what happened in it. On moving day, the roses Jackson bought had wilted. I threw them in the trash and suddenly felt awful. I opened the chat with Jackson. We hadn't talked in almost a week. What should I say? Should I ask him to take his toiletries he left at my place? Or question him about that girl? We started off with no clear intentions, at most just a passing acquaintance. Feeling irritated, I threw my phone and went to find the cat. I picked it up and placed it on the couch. Lumbo, you've been sneaking freeze-dried treats again. After scolding the cat, even I was surprised. When did I subconsciously accept the name Jackson gave it? Not just me, even the cat had been corrected by him. I remembered those days Jackson repeatedly corrected the cat with a handful of fish treats. He crouched on the balcony, sunlight bathing him, warm and refreshing. I chatted with Melody for a while. She laughed and asked me if I had ever heard the phrase, "As long as the new lover is excellent enough, there's no old love that can't be forgotten, you've fallen in love." But I haven't. The next moment, I called Jackson open the door. I quickly went to open the door, and Jackson stood straight outside, reeking of alcohol. You. He kissed me. I pushed him away. Jackson. Do I have any strength, or is it you? Want some water? If our roles were reversed, wouldn't you be jealous too? He stared at me, stubbornly waiting for an answer. Jackson, you are still in college, and it's been almost 3 years since I graduated. So, are you just playing with me? Not really. Then shut up. Jackson sat on the couch with a dark face, and when Lumbo saw him, its eyes lit up, rushing into his arms. Jackson pet the cat. Lumbo, being a step-parent isn't easy. Late at night, as I was about to fall asleep, Jackson suddenly said, I may not have enough credits to graduate. What should I do? There's a way to add 2 credits, it depends on whether you're willing to help. I'm willing. We got our marriage license. I was startled. Marriage license? You don't want to? Before I could speak, Jackson lifted the covers and was about to leave. I grabbed him, staring at his 8-pack abs. Have you thought it through? Any second thoughts? He kissed me. Tomorrow, come home with me. At Jackson's doorstep, I realized his family was not ordinary either. Maybe because of the shadow Steven's mom cast on me, I felt uneasy, and I suddenly remembered something. Are you having second thoughts? Jackson's light-colored eyes looked at me quietly. Not really. Nancy, are you nervous? 3 seconds of silence. I nodded honestly, kind of. Jackson smiled, hugging my waist, somewhat out of shape. Nancy, my mom is very easygoing. Jackson had already informed his family in advance, and his dad and mom were waiting for us. We were having a good conversation when I entered, but as soon as I walked in, the living room fell silent, everyone staring at me. Hello, Auntie, Uncle. After calling out, I noticed Jackson's aunt looked familiar. Not entirely sure, I gave her a second look. She smiled warmly, took my hand, and said, Nancy. I smiled gently. Auntie, nice to see you again. Mom, do you two know each other? Jackson asked suspiciously. His aunt chuckled, you're not even graduated yet, and you're already talking about getting married at home. I had to come see what my future daughter-in-law looks like. You're beautiful, right, Nancy? Your mom, your aunt is very friendly. Don't be shy, feel at home just like you always do. The atmosphere at Jackson's home was very welcoming, and I felt completely at ease. Jackson's mom even invited me to a beauty salon next week. As I sat in the passenger seat with Jackson, I breathed a sigh of relief and turned to him. Were you lying to me? Still don't have enough credits. His ears turned red, looking a bit unnatural. Be there by 9 a.m. tomorrow, don't be late. Forget it, I won't go back to school. Jackson and I got married. As we came out, I took a photo of us holding the marriage certificate. Looking at the usually cool Jackson, I pulled him over. Smile, I want to post it on Twitter. Nancy? I responded and turned to look at him. He lowered his head, and our lips met, his hand holding mine. When the shutter clicked, he said, let's use this one. That's a bit embarrassing. I said, sending the photo wholeheartedly. Jackson casually remarked, what about your ex-boyfriend? Shouldn't you block him? I've deleted him long ago. Besides, you're not hiding, so why would I block him? Jackson's tone was light, but there was a faint curve at the corner of his lips. I laughed, childish. Who's childish? You are. We teased each other, but when Melody called, I answered, accidentally put on speaker. Nancy, explain to me, weren't you just temporary partners a few days ago? How did you end up getting married so suddenly? It's not a shotgun wedding, is it? Jackson glanced at me and calmly took the phone. If you can convince her, having a baby now is fine. I rolled my eyes at him, turned off the speakerphone, couldn't explain in a few words, getting ready to be the bridesmaid. Feeling bored at home that day, I decided to stroll to Jackson's school. It turned out I bumped into Steven there. He had a shadow of beard on his chin, dark circles under his eyes. Nancy, can we talk? People were coming and going at the school gate. I didn't want to argue with him, so I gestured towards the alley next to us. Just as we passed by, Steven suddenly leaned in and kissed me. I turned my head, harshly stepped on his foot. He froze for a moment, looking at me in pain. Don't you want to? You're out of your mind, I figured it out. His voice was hoarse and shaky. Nancy, I figured it out. It has nothing to do with you. I'm sorry. What used to make me stubborn seemed insignificant now. I even didn't care if he still misunderstood me. I don't believe that marrying him was just to spite me, right? I regret it. I'm sorry to you. Should we get a divorce? Let's go back to how it was. He sounded anxious and hurried, as if he was afraid that if he didn't say it now, he would lose everything. Jackson is getting out of class. I need to pick him up. Don't go. He embraced me from behind. I tried to break free, but he held me tighter, as if he wanted to merge me into his body. Let go. I won't. Nancy, Shirley and I don't have anything going on. Nothing happened between us. I know I messed up big time, but can't you give me one more chance? Steven, I used to love you and wanted to marry you, but how did you treat me? You said I didn't give you a chance, but what about you? Did you ever give me one? You said you broke up and then brought another woman home. you said your mom's accident was because of me, you wouldn't even listen to my explanation. Warmth spread at my neck. Steven choked up. I don't believe you've forgotten all the emotions we had growing up together. What do I need to do for you to forgive me? Please, let me make it up to you. Come back to me. Nancy. A cold voice interrupted Steven. He loosened his grip, and I immediately broke free. It was Jackson. He appeared calm as if nothing had happened, but the calmness in some people was often just a facade for the turmoil in their hearts. My heart suddenly raced, and I reached out to hold his hand. You finished class. Why didn't you call me? I did, you didn't pick up, he replied flatly. I must have had my phone on silent. Shall we go? Nancy. I turned around and saw a hint of redness in Steven's eyes. Steven, you know how I felt when I saw you with Shirley? Disgusted. I pulled Jackson away. We walked in silence. He seemed low, and I was irritated by Steven's actions. Should I drop you back at school? I tentatively asked. Jackson let out a cold laugh. Nancy, wasn't I acting immature just now? I should have pretended not to notice and just left. Forget it. He chuckled self-mockingly. I'll take you home first. I didn't move, held his hand to prevent him from leaving. Are you angry? No. Jackson, if you really mind my past with him, do you regret it? His tone suddenly turned colder. Nancy, have you never truly forgotten about him? Your friends even think I'm just a temporary companion. He turned and walked away. I quickly pulled him back. You've said all you wanted. What do you want me to say? There are endless things to say to him, but nothing between us, right? I love you. I tiptoed and kissed him. Jackson looked bewildered. What did you say? I put my hands through his waist, hugged him. Jackson, don't be too jealous. You're the jealous one. He answered icily, then put his arm around me and led me to his side. I dragged my words. Aren't you hungry? Your face is green with envy. Are you doing this on purpose? He bit me as he lowered his head, and there was a smell of alcohol emanating from him. It must have been from the struggle with Steven, and it was unpleasant. So, I took off my jacket. Put mine on. But this outfit is expensive. Are you hesitating? Jackson started staying at my place more often, and he even bought a cat. The two cats would fight every day. Later, I realized that the fights between the two cats were instigated by him. For example, he would only feed one of the cats a small fish stick. I kicked him. Better rename your cat now. As our wedding day approached, Jackson's mom had someone looking after things. She took care of a lot of things for the wedding, leaving Jackson and I with little to do. The day we went to try on wedding dresses, we coincidentally ran into Shirley. She was still with that middle-aged man. But the man clearly didn't have the patience to accompany her in trying on dresses. Shirley glanced at me, then started to act cute with the man. This dress makes me look fat. I want to try others. The one you picked is nice. Let's pay more to try it on first. It was clear she was trying to compete with me. Before I could say anything, the man impatiently shook off her hand. Why does a mistress like you need to try on so many wedding dresses? We weren't even planning a wedding. I've never seen such a troublemaker. I need to go pick up my daughter from school. You go home. Shirley's face turned pale and then flushed. Finally, she walked up to me, staring at me, as if trying to salvage some dignity. Aren't you gloating now? I held back a smile, but couldn't help it. Isn't it obvious enough? Shirley's face immediately darkened, but she smiled when she saw Jackson coming out in his outfit. Can you keep her? Jackson put his arm around my waist, suggesting, Auntie, maybe it's better to tie down the uncle first, especially a blind uncle like this one. Hard to find. I laughed. Auntie, see you next time. Shirley cursed loudly in anger. Later, I heard that Shirley was confronted by the original wife, who happened to catch her husband cheating, so she lost the house and returned all the money. The original wife even caused trouble at her company, and rumors were flying around. The day before my wedding with Jackson, Steven, using a borrowed phone, called me. He sounded drunk on the phone, his voice filled with pain. Nancy, do you still remember the promise we made together? Steven, I don't think I ever told you. I don't like sunflowers. I like roses. and Jackson gives me roses. There was silence from the other end. I hung up the phone, the wind blew in, moving the curtains, and suddenly, I missed Jackson so much. Steven's epilogue. When did the regret begin? It must have been after breaking up with Nancy and bringing her best friend back to the home we once shared. My mind said I should trust her. How could she say those things to my mom? But my heart told me my mom wouldn't lie in the final moments. Yet, I couldn't let go of her. I hurt her while worrying. Playing games at the bar with friends, I lost. When asked about the biggest regret from college, I said, paying Nancy's tuition. This led my mom to discover my transfer records and immediately think she was after my money. Even when I told her Nancy eventually paid me back and that they had known each other for years, my mom remained convinced that she was only after my money and would show her true colors one day. It wasn't regretting paying her tuition, it was regretting not handling things properly. At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. So, when I brought her home, my mom was cold towards her, and I didn't pay attention. I thought I could handle it until I proposed to her, and my mom vehemently opposed it. I wondered, why did my mom dislike Nancy so much? She wasn't a materialistic person, Shirley was less favored than Nancy, and my mom even liked her. Later, my mom had an accident and left a suicide note. Nancy isn't like that. Nancy might have said hurtful words in a moment of distress. I shouldn't blame her, she didn't even know my mom had depression. I had two devils inside me. Rather than punishing her, it was punishing myself. One day, I accidentally saw a photo at my dad's place, a woman with the same strikingly beautiful eyes as Nancy. It dawned on me that everything had a trace. Who would hate someone so much for tuition fees? My mom disliked a different person, and Nancy happened to be that person's daughter. Should I blame my dad for being a womanizer? Or my mom for being unreasonable? Or myself for not trusting her? Why should we inherit the grudges of the previous generation? Why do I have to bear this burden? Later, the housekeeper told me that day, Nancy didn't say a word in response. It was my mom who was harsh and almost forced her to let go. My mom gave her money to keep quiet, so she chose silence. I was so wrong. How could I doubt her? She had explained to me multiple times that she didn't say those things, but I didn't believe her. What had I done? When breaking up with Shirley, she said, Steven, deep down, you've always known Nancy isn't like that. But you blame yourself, your mom couldn't hold on to your dad, and she can't hold on to you. Your mom dislikes Nancy so much that after what happened to her, you feel guilty and need someone to blame. So you blame Nancy, that way, you can feel better, even though she will never forgive you. I didn't believe it. The girl I loved was faithful, we had known each other since childhood. She wouldn't not forgive me. I was just temporarily lost. Until I saw her with that male college student. Knowing her love for me, seeing her look at someone else with such love made me panic. I was truly about to lose her. In the end, I did lose her. She said she didn't like sunflowers. I seem to have never asked her if she liked sunflowers. After her departure, I lost the ability to love. I accepted a business marriage. On the eve of the wedding, I got drunk with my best friend. At his place, I saw my intended spouse and him discussing how to take over my business. I exploded in rage. I ultimately killed the intended spouse. As the police took me away, the shattered look on Nancy's face when I brought Shirley home came to mind. What did she feel back then, seeing me with Shirley? Is this punishment? It should be.